Hey guys, what's good? Welcome back to JDB Selects. Sorry for the delay in getting the video up. Winter with sick kids is not much fun at all, but don't worry, we'll get through it together. Round 20 in the books, that means we're down to the sticky, pointy end of the season. Finals is just around the corner. Everyone's now starting to take stock of the ladder and where they sit and what their team needs to do to get themselves either in the 8 or higher up the ladder. So I hope you've been enjoying it. It's been a pretty great season so far, especially if you are a Warriors fan like me. But before we get stuck into my round 21 tips, I just wanted to say a massive thank you. 10,000 subscribers. That is just absolutely insane to me. We crossed over late last week to the magic 5-figure mark. I just wanted to say a massive thank you. I mean, it's been crazy. 472 days, only 121 videos, and 1 million plus views. And it's all down to you guys who watch these videos, who get involved in the comments. You guys keep me motivated to keep doing these. You guys give me a platform to share my thoughts. And also in return, I obviously give you a platform to share your thoughts. It's super, super collaborative, and I really, I can't believe it. So thank you again. I mean, we're not stopping here though. We're just getting started. I've got so many cool ideas that I've lined up for next year. With your support, we'll keep doing amazing things, and I will try my best to always give back to the community that started it. So thank you very much. But before we get stuck into my round 21 tips, as always, let's look back at how we did last week. So last week we tipped 6 out of 7 games. I went for a Hail Mary play on the Roosters, and to be fair, for the first 50 minutes, I thought I was going to pull a rabbit out the hat. Sometimes you do have to take those risks, and if they pay off, you're a hero. If you don't, you're a zero. In this case, I'm left with a bit of egg on my face, but that's all good. We go again this week. Now, we are almost through the season, but if you don't know by now, you either haven't seen these videos before, you don't care, or you are new, we are running a subscribers tipping comp this season. All the details to join are shown on screen now, so get involved if you can. And speaking of the tipping comp, we do have another lead change. Abdullah the Butcher takes back top spot from Jared 68. These two have been going back and forward for the past month now. It's super exciting to watch. Good luck to everyone in the tipping comp this week. Let's get stuck into my tips for round 21. Alright, round 21 gets underway on Thursday night with the 16th placed St. George Illawarra Dragons taking on the last placed West Tigers at Wynn Stadium in Wollongong. Starting first with the Dragons, St. George will be coming off their final bye of the season and went down to the Raiders 36 points to 26 back in round 19. The Dragons were put on the back foot early and found themselves down by 6 points to 24 at the break. They needed to be the ones to score first in the second half, and they did through Zach Lomax, who had one of his best games of the season, running for 252 metres with 2 tries, 1 try assist and 10 tackle breaks. The Dragons did manage to claw down the Raiders' lead to just 4 points in the 64th minute, but the miracle comeback wasn't to be. Despite the loss though, the Dragons nearly scored 30 points without Ben Hunt, which I think is pretty impressive, and Hunt himself will be back this week, which should obviously give them some much needed confidence in attack. And as for the Tigers, well, the Tigers were unable to secure their 4th win of the season, beaten by the Newcastle Knights 34 points to 18. Now I know I sound like a very broken record when I'm talking about the Tigers because all I ever seem to mention is Jareem Buller, but seriously, he is absolutely unbelievable in his debut season, and it's even more impressive considering the team he's playing in. Buller scored 2 tries, ran for 130 metres with 8 tackle breaks, and without him and Coruscant, the Tigers probably get beaten by about 40 or 50. Charlie Staines is expected back this week, but Luke Brooks isn't set to be available until round 23. Looking at the two sides head to head, the Wests, they have a decent record over St. George, winning 5 of the last 7 games. They also have an outstanding record against the Dragons in Wollongong. They've won 3 of the past 4 and have a historical 67% win rate at the venue. Thursday games are never fun, let alone when it's an absolute poo slinger, but man, I am going to take the Dragons here by 1 to 12 points. It's obviously a super tough one to pick, especially given that the stats do favour the Tigers, but without an established halves pairing, I think the Dragons can or should get it done at home, but man, only just. Alright, kicking off the 2 Friday fixtures, we have the 5th placed NZ Warriors playing host to the 4th placed Canberra Raiders at Go Media Stadium here in Auckland. Starting first with the Warriors, the Wars put on one of their best performances of the season, thumping the Cronulla Sharks 44 points to 12 in front of a packed Mount Smart. Now, I was at that game and I haven't had a chance to watch a full replay yet, but it seemed like the Warriors were winning the contest through the middle and getting on the outside of Cronulla's edges with ease. SJ was at his scintillating best again, alongside standout performances from Rocco Berry, Adam Fanua-Blake and Wade Egan, but the most impressive part for me was the 90% completion rate while still playing calculated, high-octane football. The crucial win moved the Warriors back into the top 4 briefly, and with a relatively easy run home including a final bye, it's obviously an exciting time to be a Warriors fan. And as for the Raiders, Canberra, they will be fresh off their final bye of the season, but the week prior managed to avoid another second half collapse, this time against the Dragons, holding on to win 36 points to 26. It was all the Raiders in the first half and they led 24-6 at halftime, but as is often the case with Canberra, they were outscored 20 points to 10 in the second half. Despite giving the Dragons a sniff, it was the Raiders' biggest winning margin of the season, with standout performances from Matt Timokor, Seb Chris and Joseph Tarpany giving Canberra fans plenty to be excited about. The bye couldn't have come at a better time for the Raiders, who are expecting Pasami Solo, Josh Papali and Harley Smith-Shields to be available for a trip across the Tasman. Looking at the two sides head to head, there are no clear stats in their recent meetings. Both sides have enjoyed 5 wins each in the last 10. However, the Raiders haven't had much success across the Tasman, with the Warriors having won 11 of the past 15 games at home. Because of that, and because I am completely biased here, I am taking the Wars. I'm taking the Warriors 13+. The Raiders almost had 30 points put on them by the bloody Dragons without Ben Hunt. So even if they're coming off a bye, they do still have to travel here. And if the Warriors play anything like they did against the Sharks, it shouldn't really be close. Although it is expected to piss down with rain on Friday evenings, so that could definitely play into the Raiders' favour. And the final game on Friday is potentially the game of the season, the match of the round. It's the 8th placed South Sydney Rabbitohs taking on the 2nd placed Brisbane Broncos at Sunshine Coast Stadium. Starting first with the Rabbitohs, South Sydney will be coming off their 2nd bye of the season. However, the week prior they were upset by the Bulldogs and almost pulled off what would have been one of the great comebacks. The Bunnies were missing plenty of star personnel and the Dogs made them pay early, flying out to a 16-point lead, before the Rabbits scored 3 tries in the final 15 minutes, spearheaded by a stunning performance from Blake Taaffe, who scored 2 tries with 3 line breaks and 5 tackle breaks. Souths are expected to be boosted by the returns of Latrell Mitchell this week, as well as Cody Walker, Kaloma Tangi, Campbell Graham, Jacob Host and Jai Arrow. This is a crucial game for the Bunnies, who may drop out of the 8 if they were to lose. And as for the Broncos, Brisbane briefly enjoyed the top spot on the ladder with a 44-24 win over the Bulldogs on Saturday afternoon. The Broncos were kept honest in the first half and were clearly missing both Haas and Carrigan and went into the sheds with a slim lead. But after scoring in the 3rd minute of the second half, the momentum completely shifted in their favour and they pulled away. Adam Reynolds controlled the game perfectly, racking up 3 line breaks and 2 try assists, while Tristan Saylor was also unreal at the back with 2 try assists and nearly 200 run metres. Now, Souths aren't the only ones getting troops back this week, as Reece Walsh, Paddy Carrigan and Payne Haas are all expected to be named. Looking at the two sides head to head, despite the Bunnies having a phenomenal historical record over the Bunnies, Souths have turned that around in recent years, winning 6 of the past 9 games. However, here's a crazy stat. The Bunnies have only beaten the Broncos in Sydney 6 times since 1988. That's just 6 wins at home in 35 years. Man, this is going to be an absolute cracker of a game. I am super excited. Obviously with both sides, I guess, essentially being full strength, that just adds to the spectacle. But in terms of tip, I'm going to take the Broncos here, 1-12. The Broncos were obviously thumped 32 points to 6 by the Bunnies at Suncorp already this season, so I do think they'll want to get that one back. Yeah, like I say, it's a super tough game to tip, but I'm going to back the stats here and tip the Broncos to get some revenge after a poor showing earlier. Alright, now kicking off the action on Super Saturday, we have the 12th placed Gold Coast Titans taking on the 14th placed Sydney Roosters at Cbus Super Stadium. Starting first with the Titans, well, there are 3 things certain in life: death, taxes, and the Gold Coast Titans blowing a halftime lead. This time going down to the Parramatta Eels 25-24 in what was easily the game of the round. It was a back and forward contest that even saw the Gold Coast play with a 2-man advantage for 8 minutes, which helped them claw back the lead. It was clear too though that some of their origin stars were feeling the fatigue and weren't as strong through the middle. I thought especially David Fifita, well obviously AJ Brimson was rested following Origin Game 3. The Titans were also on the wrong end of a crucial penalty call for the second week in a row, which the NRL have confirmed they should have been awarded a penalty, but I think the Titans could have and should have done more with that two-man advantage earlier in the match. AJ Brimson, who we just mentioned previously, he will be back in the side this week, but their captain, Big Tino Fa'asuamaleaui, has been suspended for 3 weeks. And as for the Roosters, well, the Roosters slipped further down the ladder and into the bottom 4 with a disappointing 30-16 point loss to the Melbourne Storm. I thought the Chooks were competitive for the first 40 and came out with a really high intensity, which gave them the advantage in both possession and territory in the first half, but they could only find their way across the line once. Unfortunately, it all went south in the second half, and apart from a few late tries, they never looked in it. Tedesco was rested last week, but he will return following Origin 3, and Sam Walker is still a few weeks away as he tries to get over his issue, so Sandon Smith will retain his spot in the side. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Roosters have won 11 of the past 12 games, that includes 9 straight. The Titans also haven't beaten the Roosters at home since 2016. Because of that, and because I tipped them last week and they lost, I'm going to stay true and take the Roosters again this week by 1 to 12 points. I think it's a must-win game for them in the context of their season. And with the Titans missing Big Tino, the Roosters forwards, if they play with that same intent that they showed against the Storm, they should be able, hopefully, to win the contest through the middle. And hopefully the addition of Tedesco can yield more points against the Titans side that does love to leak them. Alright, now moving to the second game on Saturday, we have the 10th placed Newcastle Knights taking on the 3rd placed Melbourne Storm at McDonald Jones Stadium. Starting first with the Knights, Newcastle kept their finals hope alive with a 34-18 point win over the Tigers at home. The Knights claimed the lead in the 3rd minute, and although they never conceded it, did look patchy in defence in stages. Ponga continued his sublime run of form with 1 try, 4 line breaks and 3 try assists, while their big backline did a number on the Tigers' edges. And while the win was never really in doubt, the Knights did make 10 errors and conceded 5 penalties, which has been their kryptonite all year, and is the one aspect of their game they need to work on. Dane Gagai is expected to return from his foot injury this week, and will no doubt be wanting to prove he's still got it. And as for the Storm, it took Melbourne almost 50 minutes to find their groove against a spirited Roosters side, pulling away late to win 30 points to 16. Personally, I thought the Storm were quite off their game in attack for a good part of that match, with their lone try in the first 52 minutes coming from an intercept, but it was obviously their defence and discipline that kept them in the contest, constantly shutting down the Roosters' offense and only making 5 errors to the Roosters' 14. However, once they did find their groove, they did what they did best. They blitzed through the Roosters in what was basically a quintessential Melbourne Storm performance, obviously highlighted with a brilliant hat-trick from Xavier Coates. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, Melbourne have won 19 of the past 22 games against the Knights, who haven't beaten the Storm at home since 2014. Pretty easy one to tip here. I am going to take Melbourne 13+. The Knights have obviously secured some good wins recently, but over some pretty poor sides defensively, and I can't see them flowing as well as they have against Melbourne, and they still have far too many errors in their game, so Storm should be too strong. Melbourne 13+. And the final game on Saturday, we have the 9th placed North Queensland Cowboys taking on the 7th placed Parramatta Eels at Queensland Country Bank Stadium. Starting first with the Cowboys, North Queensland secured their 5th straight win with a gutsy 19-18 point win over the Sea Eagles. The scoreline doesn't really reflect how dominant the Cowboys were, with Scotty Drinkwater continuing his run of form alongside the rest of his rep teammates. The Cowboys weren't able to execute as well as they have been recently on attack, but that was obviously down to some good work from Manly, but it has been the Cowboys' defense that has been incredibly impressive over the last 3 weeks, conceding just 14 points in 3 games, which is just unreal. The Cowboys are a super fun team to watch when they're going well, and boy are they going well right now. And as for the Eels, Parramatta only just managed to get past the Gold Coast Titans to close out round 20, winning 25 points to 24 thanks to a field goal and a potential try of the year from Clint Gutherson. I think the Eels win was even more impressive considering they spent basically 10 minutes with 2 men in the sin bin and only conceded 2 tries in that period. Those 2 sin bins do mean that they will be without Regan Campbell-Gillard for the next 5 weeks, as well as Micah Sivo, who has pled guilty but is actually fighting to downgrade the charge. Deidre Arce will still fill the gap at 5'8" until Dylan Brown returns in 2 more weeks' time. Looking at the two sides head-to-head, the Cowboys have won 7 of the past 9 games in Townsville. However, the Eels have won 4 of the past 5 overall. This should be another good game too, I think. Both sides have a lot of strike, and have been playing some pretty good football lately. But I do like the Cowboys at home here by 1 to 12 points. I also wouldn't be surprised if it's Cowboys 13 plus, but I'm just going to play it safe and take Cows 1 to 12. Alright, and now we have 2 games on Sunday this week, starting first with the first placed Penrith Panthers hosting the 15th placed Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs at Bluebet Stadium. Starting first with the Panthers, Penrith once again showed just how good their depth is, beating the Dolphins 24 points to 12 without almost all of their rep players. It wasn't a flawless win by any stretch, with the Dolphins ahead leading into the final 10 before a quick try double from Tom Jenkins broke the hearts of Finns fans. Jack Cogger has been so consistent in place of Cleary, and Isaac Tungo will continue to show why he's one of the most underrated centres in the comp. Man, it's just crazy to think that even without almost half of their starting lineup, the Panthers' reserve players are so composed and able to stick to a game plan and grind teams down like they've been doing it for years and years. It's truly incredible. Good news though for the Panthers and their fans is all their rep players are back in action this weekend, including Nathan Cleary, who will make his return from a hamstring injury. And as for the Bulldogs, the Dogs were unable to give Josh Reynolds the perfect send-off at Belmore, getting defeated by the Broncos 44 points to 24. Canterbury were competitive for the first 40 with the combination of Sexton and Burton already improving their attack, but when Sexton went down just before half time, so did the Dogs, only managing 6 second half points without him. The Dogs also did struggle through the middle against an understrength Broncos pack, which doesn't bode well for this game against Penrith, and also Sexton and Burns aren't going to be available this week, so it's going to make it very, very tough for the Dogs to challenge the 2-time defending premiers. Looking at the two sides head to head, Penrith have won 6 of the past 7, that includes 5 straight. The Dogs also haven't beaten the Panthers in Penrith since 2016. Pretty easy one here, probably the easiest one of the round. Panthers 13 plus, they're far superior in every aspect. I don't think I need to say too much more. And the final game of round 21 has the 6th placed Cronulla Sharks taking on the 11th placed Manly Sea Eagles at PointsBet Stadium. Starting first with the Sharks, Cronulla suffered another loss to a top 8 team, going down 44 points to 12 to the Warriors. The Sharks got on the board first through Nico Hines, but from that point onwards never really looked like threatening the Kiwis line. It was always going to be a tough ask with some key forwards missing, but their defensive movement and reads were really poor. It's worrying signs for the Sharks, who look less and less like title challengers as the weeks go on, and I wouldn't be surprised if Craig Fitzgibbon swings the axe and makes a few changes in the halves. Teague Wilton suffered a knee injury and is looking at an extended stint on the sidelines, but the good news is they will be boosted by the returns of Dale Finucane, Braden Hamlin-Uele, and Royce Hunt is just one more week away. And as for the Sea Eagles, Manly, they went down to the Cowboys 8 points to 19 in a game that the scoreline flattered them. The Sea Eagles defense was on point for most of the game, restricting the Cowboys to just 19 points, but struggled to fire any of their own shots on attack. Manly looked much improved through the middle third with Jake Trbojevic, and I also thought Hamoli Olakuatu got himself involved a lot more, which made them a much more threatening side. It's really hard to get a gauge on where Manly are at the moment, especially given how different they look without Turbo, but I wouldn't quite write them off from making a run just yet. Looking at the two sides head to head, Cronulla has won 4 of the past 5, including 3 straight. However, Manly have a great record at PointsBet, winning 10 of the past 13 games at the ground. Another little tricky game to close out the round, but I am going to back the Sharks to bounce back here by 1 to 12 points. I know the stats do point to Manly, but I think the Sharks do get some strong middles back, which is what they've been lacking recently. And yeah, I think they need to show something, and this is the game to do it. So, Sharks 1 to 12. In summary, I am taking the Dragons 1 to 12, the Warriors 13 plus, the Broncos and the Roosters 1 to 12, Melbourne 13 plus, Cowboys 1 to 12, Penrith 13 plus, and Cronulla 1 to 12. Thank you as always for watching. Thanks again so much for 10,000 subscribers. Your support means the world to me. Like I said earlier, you guys keep me motivated. You keep me excited to keep making content for you. And I always appreciate all of the comments and the kind words. So thanks again. Leave your tips in the comments below. Like the video. Hit subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you in the next one.